back. Today we wanted to do a quick review of one of the products that we felt that was very useful for Paxton, and for us, and that's the Hatch Baby Scale.
So obviously the name kind of tells you what it is. So it's a scale, but it's also a changing pad. What we'll do is we'll go over the pros, cons, what we kind of liked and didn't like about this product. So first I'll tell you kind of why we got it. So I was breastfeeding, so I still breastfeed Paxton, and my biggest concern was he was very small when he was born, and so we wanted to make sure he was getting enough food. And so one of the things that I was always concerned about is that, was he getting enough? And he was a very sleepy baby in the beginning, and so we were never sure, is he drinking enough? And there were days when he would just kind of, hang on the boob all day. And I didn't know, was he just there for comfort, or was he just drinking constantly because he wasn't getting enough? So that's when we finally it's a pricey object, and we didn't want to buy it at first because we thought, it was just one of those techie things that we didn't need, but then to kind of make me feel better, we purchased it so that we can see is Paxton getting enough food, and so we could track that. So that's the best thing about this is if you are breastfeeding, you'll be able to weigh your baby before you feed him or her, and then feed the baby, and then weigh him again, and then you'll know approximately how much the baby ate. Another nice thing is, it's like this plasticky foamy thing, and it's very easy to clean. And then unlike other products, you can even, remove the strap. So if you were to get, poop or something on here, you can clean it, which is nice. And then within the app, which we really like the app, that you use to, weigh the baby and things like that, you can track everything. So you can track, poopy diapers, wet diapers, when you go to the pediatrician, you can put in their height, weight, head circumference, even their sleep you can track, and then you can look at a trend, For example, if your baby doesn't have a bowel movement, you can go back and see, when do they typically, and you can kind of see their trends, which is very useful. Now, I'll admit, now that Paxton is 7 months, I kind of gave up on the weighing just because it's a hassle, because he's just so heavy and he rolls. So, the baby obviously has to be still, for it to get a reading. And now with him moving and rolling, it's kind of a big ordeal getting him to lay still. So he'll constantly be flipping and trying to crawl off the pad. So now that he's able to roll and crawl, it takes a long time for it to finally get a reading, and it just wasn't worth it anymore. And then we actually don't even really use it much to change him either, just because he rolls so much, and it's easier and safer to just do it on the floor. But I definitely, would purchase it again, especially in the beginning, to make sure that the baby is getting enough food.
So a couple things that she mentioned that we probably should elaborate on. So one is the app. So you do not need to buy the product to use the app. Obviously, if you buy the product, you need the app to use it because it solely works through the app. But if you want an app that tracks everything in one place, we definitely suggest you download the Hatch Baby app. We had other apps when he was first born. We had other apps that we were trying to use to track things, and it just seemed like everything was never all in one place. That, I guess, is maybe a double negative there, but this app allowed you to keep everything all in one place. So that's a good thing. Now, actually, as we were going through the list of cons and putting kind of that list together to share with you, one of the things that we didn't put together on that list is the fact that this only does work with the app. Yeah. So when you're carrying the baby to weigh them, you need to have your phone in order to access the ability to weigh them. So if we could send a message back to Hatch and request something, it would be nice if there would have been like a button on the scale that you would have pressed so that you could have initiated a feeding and then kind of closed out a feeding as well once the baby was weighed. But so these are the cons now. One of the other issues is durability. So if you go online and you read through some of the information, one of the things that the company that makes this does not warranty for is if this is slid repeatedly, There's a load cell in here, basically just like any other scale would have, and apparently it's very sensitive to sliding, and they will not warranty that, which we can tell you that happens inadvertently all the time. I mean, if Paxton decides that he wants to kick himself off of like the mirror and like push off of the mirror or something like that, or even have his foot on the granite, this will slide. So we've done it inadvertently, even when I try and pick it up and move it. It's definitely a bit of an issue and a pain in the rear.
And it makes a loud noise when you do
Yeah.
it too, so you know when you're sliding it.
Yeah.
And then I guess I want to say too, because people are probably thinking he's like kicking a mirror that's just hung on the wall. So we have this between our two vanities and the master bathroom. So we have it up on our countertop.
One of the other things is again with the app, if you go in and you initiate a feeding, and let's say the baby only ate 1.5 ounces and your goal is to have the baby eat 3 ounces, you have 2 options there. You can either click start or end the feeding, so you can say, yep, we're good, they ate 1.5 ounces and we're done, or you can say continue feeding. You cannot go back in and tell it to kind of restart an old feeding. So if the baby decided that, let's say that he did eat 1.5 ounces and you decided that you wanted to continue the feeding afterwards, after you've already said completed, you can't do that. You have to reinitiate an entire feeding. And it's kind of a pain in the rear to do that. But, I guess, again, probably comparing this to anything else out on the market, they probably all do roughly the same thing.
Yeah, and I want to add to that, because if you're watching this and you don't have a baby yet, you may think, why wouldn't you know when to close it out? So when they're really little, they tend to fall asleep a lot, while you're feeding them. So sometimes they'll fall asleep and you'll say, okay, well, they're asleep, let me go weigh them. And then all of a sudden, you're done weighing, you said, okay, close out the feeding, and all of a sudden they're, ready for more. And then you're like, oh, now I need to go and weigh you again. So it happens more than you would think that, you're kind of like, oh, I shouldn't have closed it out.
Natalie also mentioned at the beginning, she kind of foreshadowed some of the other cons, but one was kind of the priciness of this. We'll have to take a look. Do you remember how much it cost?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, we'll flash it up on the screen. We'll have to take a look and see. But it's definitely not cheap. I mean, effectively, like she mentioned, we use this for roughly, let's just call it 6 months, where we use this just, all the time. Both as a changing pad as well as the scale. And it was really nice, especially when you're in like I guess this is kind of gross, but when you're in like the liquidy poop phase, this was really nice because it's just easy to clean. But I think there's probably other solutions out there at this price. I mean, you could probably buy like 15 different changing pads at this price and just switch them all out every day. We also, this is the last one that we kind of prepared, the last con. When we got this, and it's kind of difficult to see it, I guess, with the mat here because it's white. So I think there were a couple of options. There was gray and there was white. We chose the white. Natalie chose the white. I chose the gray, but everybody should know that the male just loses out on that decision. But anyway, so we got the white, and as soon as we unpackaged it, and I think this is probably easier to see on a white item, but let me see if I can show how it's constructed. So basically, this is like I hope my head's not cut off now, but it's basically a foam pad. It's like a high density foam that's molded to a plastic shell. Obviously all the guts down here, it does run on batteries, by the way. And I think it came with batteries, but different topic. When you look at the way that the foam is molded onto it, for a product that's in this price range, I would have expected it to be a little nicer.
Yeah.
I worked in this industry where you would make this stuff, and I mean, I would not have let this go out the door. So it's, again, I think it's because this is just a niche product that they're probably, it's not a high volume product. So we actually considered contacting them and potentially returning it, but because it was just in the middle of the pandemic and everything else, we didn't want to have to deal with it. We bought ours through Bed Bath & Beyond, and I think we could use a 20% off coupon. But Again, we don't regret the purchase.
No.
Because it was very useful for 6 months. And if your spouse is anything like Natalie, or you happen to be a woman who's anything like Natalie, I mean, it literally got to the point where I'm like, please just spend the money and stop talking about whether or not Paxton was eating enough. So yeah, cons. Do we think that this is going to last us for 5 years? If you're going to have 5 kids back to back to back, I don't think it's going to last you through 5 kids.
Yeah.
But again, it was. I think that it was a worthwhile purchase.
And then one more thing I want to add, this is neither a con or a pro, just kind of, I mean, maybe everyone knows how to use buckles, I don't know.
Oh yeah.
But I noticed that when you buckle him in, if you have it like the correct way, that he can easily pull it up. So you just need to like push and it'll easily, go up. So what you want to make sure you do is you want to make sure you have it backwards.
So the pull strap needs to be against his belly.
Yeah, on the bottom, which I don't know if that's like a normal, if that's just normally, if everyone knows that that's how you use them, but see now you can't, whereas if it's flipped, I'll just flip it again for you, it is very easy for anyone to slide up. So that's just something, if you do get it, or I don't know, maybe every buckle's like this, a little safety tip. Make sure you test this, that it doesn't easily slide.
So we'll have a couple of other products that we think were really helpful to us. I'm like scratching out, probably was not the greatest angle. My mouth was like wide open, but we have a couple of other products that we'll probably review because, I mean, we watched a couple of videos on YouTube, but I think there were literally only a couple videos of this. So, and like I said, we'll have a couple of other items that are kind of like this, and maybe a couple of other random items too that are more or less out there. So if you guys have any questions about this, please let us know. Again, the app, download the app if you want to take a look at it before you purchase it. It's very useful.
Yeah, and like he said, the app, use it even if you don't, purchase this, because it's the best. I mean,
Yeah.
we tried a couple of other ones, and we personally thought it was the best.
Yeah. So thanks for joining, and until next time.